Welcome to A Healthy Curiosity, the podcast that explores what it takes to be well in a busy world with self-care strategies from Chinese medicine. I'm your host, Brodie Welch, here to support you on your journey of health, happiness, and personal evolution. Welcome to A Healthy Curiosity. With me today, all the way from Hong Kong, is Dr. Katherine Dale, and we're going to talk about perimenopause. Dr. Katherine Dale provides naturopathic medical and emotional support to help women regulate hormonal issues. Dr. Kate believes that we need to become connected to our natural cycles of the earth in order to connect to the needs of our bodies. And I'm really delighted to have her on the show because this is a topic I get asked about a lot and that a lot of people don't know a lot about. So, Dr. Kate, welcome to the show and thanks for being willing to share your expertise with us today.
Thank you for having me. This is really exciting, and I'm pleased to be able to share with you what I know.
Great. I know in checking out your website, it looks like you do a lot with fertility, and I did recently just do an episode on fertility, so I appreciate you being willing to talk about this sort of less niche-y topic of perimenopause, which affects pretty much all women at some point in life, right? Most women know that menopause is the ending of the menses and that this happens around 51 or so. But apart from jokes about hot flashes, people don't necessarily really know what perimenopause is about or what it entails, what's normal and what isn't. And so I'd love to just start by defining what perimenopause is, what's going on biologically, and what kinds of symptoms might start showing up for people.
Yeah, well, you're completely right about the hot flashes. That seems to be a big one that a lot of women experience. And of course, it's quite obvious in the body. And it also points to biologically some of the changes that are happening in our bodies, which is related to hormone levels. So estrogen in the body is actually what's happening when we are experiencing a hot flash. And we commonly think that the estrogen in our body is actually dropping. And what it is that the estrogen actually is fluctuating drastically in our bodies. So it's going up and down and up and down. And whenever our bodies experience a down in the estrogen, we actually are feeling like a withdrawal symptom. And that's the hot flash.
So that is a temporary, whoa, what's going on with my estrogen that the body's going through?
It's like, I want that, I need that, I want it back. And, if we can't ride it through and just kind of allow that fluctuation to happen and eventually it really does drop down, then we're just going to continue. You'll even get, women who are on medication who continue to have, hot flashes if they stop their medication. So this transition is really what it is. And you talked about how fertility is an issue at one point for us. This is, as women, this is just a normal transition that we go through. And this transition of losing the estrogen in our bodies or the estrogen reducing is normal, but it does end up having other effects on our bodies. And because of the interaction of different hormones in our bodies, then we have other symptoms as well.
What other symptoms might someone experience?
Yeah, another really common one that happens quite early on for a lot of women is just a general change in our menstruation. So in the past, our cycle would have been a certain length, and now it's getting longer or shorter. And also the amount of menstruation, the amount of blood will often increase significantly. And so that is a very common symptom that we'll experience. Also, having issues with insomnia is a big one. Mood swings, which, I believe actually have to do with emotional connection and being in tune with ourselves, those emotional changes. Also, fatigue and weight changes as well. We can talk more about stress symptoms as well related to the weight changes.
Yeah, let's definitely go there because, well, really everything that you've just mentioned are things that I work with in my practice with women. Usually it's the frequent periods, earlier, heavier periods that typically get people's attention first. And in Chinese medicine, we have different ways of thinking about that in terms of whether there's too much heat in the blood or whether there is a deficiency of yin or like all kinds of ways that we think about it from a Chinese medicine standpoint. But in your view, first of all, do we have to experience these symptoms or is it conceivable that you just sail right along up until your period stops and that's it?
I think that unfortunately, this time is, like I mentioned, an important transition. So I would never want anyone to just completely sail through it. I think it's an amazing opportunity for us to transform, like a lobster losing her shell. We reemerge as a soft, vulnerable being. And for me, that wonkiness and that exposure and that transition is key in order for us to evolve. So I see this perimenopause as an amazing time for us to recognize our changing role in society and towards ourselves. That this is really a deepening of our ability to understand ourselves. We're losing all the identity. We're losing all that identity to what society attaches to the female, this fertile, voluptuous, whatever. Not that we can't remain fertile and voluptuous, but it's just a real amazing opportunity for us to shed our shell and to really possess this new way of understanding ourselves, where we take ourselves first. We value our own identity and we're wise. We become able to share this wisdom with other women who are younger than us. We have a new role in society. So I wouldn't want us to just forget about it and not notice it. Definitely want us to be able to bask in that transition. As far as the physical symptoms, they're a reminder for us to be aware of the fact that we're going through this transition. So they can be managed, and they definitely can be worse if we are really, really frustrated and trying to resist. So being able to connect with our body, recognizing that this is an amazing opportunity and transition for us, will help us deal with some of those symptoms. And
So
course,
are you saying that recognizing, okay, these symptoms, like maybe I can't sleep very well, maybe my periods are earlier, heavier, and maybe I'm a little more irritable or something like that. Are you suggesting that if I embrace the fact that I'm going through a transition, that these symptoms might mitigate?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, I think that depending on what you're feeling, I mean, if you start to feel really needy, and desperate for attention, the emotional kind of neediness, then you need to look in. What am I not giving myself? Where are these feelings coming from? And the anger or, the irritability, sort of identifying and acknowledging that emotion and recognizing that we need to process what's gone on throughout our lives, process any hurts or emotional anger or attachments that we have from the past. And so all of those symptoms are somehow related to an emotional side of the question of the symptom. So it's a real awakening for us. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree that there are oftentimes any emotion that we're experiencing is connected to an unmet need, and that can be really worth exploring. In Chinese medicine, I can't help but make the connection between the liver, which it has to do with the free and easy flow of qi in the body. So mood swings can be that there's some volatility going on in the liver. And indeed, it's like the liver is also where cholesterol is made and that where hormones are dependent on that cholesterol, including estrogen and progesterone. And so it's the kind of thing where like making your liver happy can a lot of times help.
Making choices about what we eat is really, really key as well. We're not going to be able to live in these bodies and process our emotions and connect to ourselves and others unless we're really healthy. So making correct food choices and making healthy food choices is really key. And you mentioned about the oils, cholesterol. Cholesterol is important in our bodies. We're using it to make all of our hormones.
Absolutely. And you touched on the idea of stress, and I would love to have you unpack that a little bit. Connection between our stress hormones and our sex hormones. It's a conversation that I have with almost every woman in my practice, because a lot of times women don't really have a sense that as we stress out and we're using these adrenal hormones like cortisol, that actually saps or potentially can sap our estrogen and progesterone. So could you describe it a little bit as to why stress is such a critical factor when we're talking about hormone balance?
Yeah, what's happening is the cortisol is really greedy. So it ends up stealing from the progesterone when we're making our hormones. So the adrenal glands will use the cholesterol to produce the hormones. And along the the production cycle, you have first the progesterone. However, if we're under stress, that progesterone then keeps traveling along the production line and turns into cortisol. So if you're under a lot of stress, it's actually your body ends up shunting all the cholesterol to be produced into cortisol rather than the hormones that we need.
And that makes sense evolutionarily in terms of the body's always going to want to prioritize escaping from tigers rather than having a baby. And so it's like,
yeah,
it definitely makes sense why that would get
or making a baby, you know, like we have time for this. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, and then there's also the hormones are really important. Things like DHEA, you mentioned progesterone, estrogen, all of these are being, you know, sidetracked. They're all, you know, being overlooked. And yeah, so it's important to monitor those stress levels, you know, make sure that we have a meditation practice and that we have people or support system to help us deal with the stress that we're under, and also just making healthy choices about what we say yes to and what we say no to. I had a fun conversation last night with some friends who, you know, they were saying, oh, you know, I don't really like to fully commit to things. And I said, well, you know what I do is I only choose the things that I really want to do in my life. And I say no a lot to things because I want to fully focus and I want to give my full attention to things that are really, really important to me. And as we mature and get older and we become more confident in setting those boundaries, you know, and being able to limit what we're doing so that we don't feel as much stress, because the stress that we are feeling, if we are, is all about things that we're really interested and really dedicated to doing.
I really appreciate that you brought that up because, yeah, we only do have so much energy to go around, and being judicious about how we spend it so that it's really in line with our values can be really affirming, and that can mean the difference between feeling constantly overwhelmed by life and feeling like we're really enjoying it and that we're really living intentionally and on purpose. I'm curious if someone has a system of managing stress, they meditate, they breathe, they exercise, they connect, they don't overdo, and yet they're still experiencing perimenopausal symptoms. What else could be going on here?
Yeah, well, we're definitely going to be feeling the effect of the changing hormones. So we need to make sure that we're, you know, checking in with our health practitioners and taking a look at what's happening at a hormonal level. And it could be something that is easily dealt with herbal remedy or maybe a homeopathic, or looking at other things that might be missing, such as vitamins in our bodies.
Are there any particular vitamins that we should be thinking about if we are experiencing perimenopausal stuff, or any particular food recommendations, that ways that we can support ourselves in our everyday lives?
Yeah, right now my big favorite is magnesium. In the past, we focused a little too much on calcium, but the magnesium is really helpful in allowing us to relax, making sure that, you know, we've got good mineral levels in our bodies. Of magnesium is really important. The food choices a lot have to do with more modifying things that were not so healthy. We knew all our lives not to be drinking too much caffeine and not to be having too much alcohol as well. Often women will switch to more of a vegetarian diet, or really being focused on organic meats, so meats that have not been injected with hormones. So we're avoiding adding extra hormone into our bodies. And then foods to eat. Antioxidants are really key at this time as well in our bodies. So eating a lot of bright orange and green vegetables is really important. And of course, again, the oils that I mentioned. So eating healthy nuts and eating things like avocado and coconut oil is fantastic too. So these sorts of things would be really helpful for the body.
Great. And if we're thinking about, in terms of hormone levels, that yes, we can monitor them, but it seems like if somebody is symptomatic in these various ways, are there ways that we can across the board support estrogen or progesterone?
I would say I would always want someone to be sure to be tested to see where they're at. There are some herbal supplements that are generally good in that they're adaptogens. So some that you might actually be familiar with as well. Rhodiola, astragalus root, cordyceps. These sorts of things are generally adaptogens for the body, which means that the body is going to use it however it needs it. So,
Yeah, in Chinese medicine, we have the notion that the kidney yin and the kidney yang are what drives the reproductive system, that the kidney yin is the egg and kidney yang is the drive and the process. Or, if we think about estrogen and progesterone, is like estrogen is the yin hormone and progesterone is the yang, that you need both in order to have healthy cycles, and that we often look to the kidney yin and yang tonics for helping to create hormone balance. And we also look at the herbs that help regulate the liver, because again, if the stress connection is there, then it might be that actually that pent up liver qi needs to be smoothed out, as well as we need to be nourishing that which we might be depleting in the form of adrenals, or the kind of like that reserve energy that we think about in Chinese medicine. Also, I just would love to mention the fact that acupuncture is amazing at helping to regulate estrogen and progesterone, even dopamine and GABA. So like helping us stay calm and regulating. Acupuncture can be fantastic for hot flashes and for mood swings and for insomnia. So all of those things can be useful. This episode of A Healthy Curiosity is brought to you by the coaching branch of BrodieWelch.com. Yes, that is me. In early 2017, I'm going to be opening up my schedule to coach just a handful of people one-on-one who are interested in showing up differently in the world. If you're wanting to feel more calm, confident, have more energy, ditch an old pattern, set a boundary, or change the one thing that you know will change everything, I would love to support you. Deep, transformative change can be hard, and it's way easier when you have someone in your corner who believes in you, who can amplify your strength, and who has lots of tools in her toolbox. If you'd like that person to be me, email me at Brodie@BrodieWelch.com. That's Brodie with an IE and Welch with a CH, and let me know that you're interested. Now back to today's show.
I'm definitely recommending, it's very common here in Hong Kong for women who are attempting to get pregnant to use acupuncture as well. So yeah, I'm a big supporter of acupuncture being used to clear all these imbalances as well in our bodies. And we can use also some supplements. DHEA is a really popular one too, and as a supplement, but needs as well to be monitored and used at a really low level to begin with. As well, a fabulous herb, depending on what's going on, is Vitex.
Oh, I love that one. I use Vitex for women who get headaches around their period, and for it also to help even out the heavy periods.
Yeah, it's a great one. And it has direct effect on hormones being released from the pituitary gland, luteinizing hormone. It's an amazing herb, and I find people react to it really well. It's something that I would give when women are trying to get pregnant. And then also, another really big transition time postpartum is great again for balancing hormones. So there are some magical elixirs out there that seem to work for a lot of women. And of course, giving the oils to anyone really is amazing too. You maybe are familiar as well with black cohosh.
Absolutely. Yes. Shengma in the Chinese vernacular. Yeah.
Yeah, so good for hot flashes and balancing out whatever's going on. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite self-care practice? This is a show about self-care strategies. I'm just curious, as you, in your own life, try to keep your hormones balanced, is there something that's a go-to for you?
Yeah, I have what I call a yes day.
What's that?
A yes day is a day where you say yes to yourself for whatever it is that you want to do. I used to do these for my kids when they were little, and I had to say yes to whatever they asked for within limit, but there were a few limits. And so I try to do these for myself. So little things that you might think to yourself on a regular day you feel a little bit guilty about, say going to see a movie or going to the cinema in the afternoon.
Slacking off.
Slacking off.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, girl. Yeah, being naughty, just maybe having that food that I told you not to have on that day, not to feel guilty about that, and just to really say yes to just having a lot of fun. I mean, saying that you're not under stress is one side of it, I'm managing my stress. Great, but are you enjoying life? Are you really saying yes to interaction and yes to connection and yes to having a good time and enjoying yourself? So
I want
having,
a yes day.
yeah.
That sounds great.
Yeah, and I'm talking about it more in the course that I'm developing too, on becoming connected to not only your own cycles, but also the lunar cycles. So there are ideal days in the month where you can take this yes day as well, depending on where the moon is in the sky.
And we think about the moon and the lunar cycles as, again, connecting with yin and yang, right? The full moon, the bright time is going to be like a fullness of yang time, and the dark is going to be more conducive to the introspection and the meditation and coming inward. Is that how you see it too?
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting, ovulation is actually connected to the yang, connected to the full moon, which, we kind of think is the opposite. Is that right for what you said?
No, I would say that that's totally right on.
Yeah, so I definitely feel the same way about recognizing our cycles. I mean, once we tune in as younger women to our own personal cycle, it's amazing how we can recognize how our moods change and our reality changes depending on where we are in our cycle. But as we get older and lose our own moon cycle, great time to start to connect to the lunar cycle and recognize that that energy is still all around us and still within our bodies, and we can feel it vibrate and resonate within us. So becoming connected to the moon at this time, if we haven't already, is just ideal in order to help us process what's going on emotionally and physically in our bodies.
It can be such a beautiful way of not treating ourselves like machines too, right? Recognizing that the energies of the environment impacts what's going on in our bodies, and that the cycles that are at work within us, we might not necessarily feel the same each and every day, day in and day out.
Mm-hmm. And also recognizing too that our bodies don't do what we tell them to do all the time, They're not automated. We're not automatons. We don't turn ourselves on and off and say, today I will do this and I will get pregnant and I will stop having hot flashes. And there's so much more going on within us and around us that's really exciting. It's amazing to tune into that and to just embrace that and allow that connection. And that really, we might be trying to control all our stress and control all our symptoms, but we just have to release at times. We just have to get in that flow and allow our bodies to just be and be human, be part of the earth, be animals, be part of the system and part of the cycle of life.
Absolutely. Just what you said about being animals, that reminds me of, do you know the Marie Oliver poem, Wild Geese?
No, I don't.
Oh, it's like one of my favorite ones ever. But it starts by saying, you do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 1,000 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. And it goes on from there. But I just love that idea that, yeah, it's not about proving that you're good enough. You're allowed to just take pleasure in having a body.
Yeah. Yeah. Pleasure in the anger and the emotion, and pleasure in the happiness, and pleasure in when your body does what you want it to do and when it doesn't, all of that, just humanness and lack of understanding and what's the word? Being in awe. Like looking at that big full moon and just, wow, this is awesome.
Yeah, we really are. We're connected to the environment, and like it's inside us, it's around us, and it's outside of us as well.
Mm-hmm. And this is a great reminder, like I spoke about perimenopause. It's a great reminder of that connection, of that we need to be willing to allow the changes in our body, and we need to just submit, and enjoy.
So apart from allowing the changes and embracing the fact that we're off in a new phase of life, is there another particular message that you think that the perimenopausal years have for women?
Mm-hmm.
What could these messages be?
Your message. your message at this time is that you now have the wisdom to share. You are now entering the wise woman stage, the crone. And your responsibility is to share all that awareness that you have accumulated over your life with other women that are younger than you.
So I have a question. I'm 39 and I went through menopause 2 years ago. Does that mean that I'm especially wise? No, I'm kidding.
Oh my goodness. Wiser than wise.
What's going on there? Like,
you're going to go through a fourth transition.
I get to keep evolving. Yay.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about age of onset, but yeah, I have friends and patients who go through perimenopausal symptoms much earlier than they're expecting. You know, things can start happening as early as 35. Changes in the body. You know, a lot of the women that I'm working with are having fertility issues, but you know, once you're 35, you could start going into early menopause, so into perimenopause. So our bodies are changing early on. Yeah, and just being able to be released in a lot of ways from the cycling of our hormones every month is empowering too, and gives you that kind of insight. So we do become more aware of the lunar cycles, and there are other cycles that are affecting our bodies. But the hormonal cycles really can be kind of controlling in your fertile years. So I'd say once you enter perimenopause, then you start to really have more of a regulated awareness or regulated hormones.
One thing that I've found interesting about in learning about what happens with menopause is that so progesterone drops off really rapidly at 35, and then estrogen drops off a bit later. And so testosterone becomes a bigger player in the later years. And that notion of like estrogen as that which makes us want to tend to the needs of others, perhaps overly so, that really wanes at the same time as testosterone, which makes us kind of more decisive and forthright and sort of more masculine, like powerful in a masculine way. It can a lot of times help women break those patterns of over-serving.
Yeah, and I've heard this quote, like the first two letters of the word menopause are M-E. So it becomes all about me, you know, this transition to empowering ourselves and not feeling so much like we have to take care of everybody and take care of anything really. And we're able to more focus on truly what we're finding important and truly what is valued in our own lives, rather than just feeling like we have to go around helping everyone else.
Yeah, not that there's anything wrong with helping people, but being driven to it at the expense of the self can a lot of times be a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, well, you and I are both helpers. We're both healers and want to help other people feel better. So, of course, I am a great proponent of being a helper and guiding other beings.
Absolutely. So you mentioned that you're working on a course, and that's about helping women to connect with the lunar cycle.
Yeah, recognizing the moon cycle and then recognizing the power that the cycle of the moon has on our lives in relation to energy that allows us to achieve our goals and our dreams in life. So really using the timing of the moon in order to time our own activities.
Great. So if people are interested in staying in touch with you or finding out more about your course, how can they do that?
At drkatherindale.com, and it's Katherine with a K, and that's my website, and they'll find out about what I'm up to there.
I'll make sure that finds its way into the show notes.
Yeah.
Dr. Kate, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us today.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it. It's great to gel everything in my head again by sharing with you and sharing with your listeners as well. I've really enjoyed meeting you and talking with you, Brodie.
Thanks for listening today. For more episodes of A Healthy Curiosity, you can visit the iTunes store. If you appreciated today's show, please leave us a review. This helps other people to find the podcast. You could also head to brodiewelch.com, where you can find free self-care resources, learn more about Chinese medicine, and let me know what you'd like to hear about on future episodes. I'd love to hear from you. Till next time, be good to yourself.